All right, so looking at this, we want to identify correlation and causation. We want to remember that we can never prove causation because there is no experiment that was done. So really the main goal is to see if there is or is not a correlation. So we see this first one, A, says a flute instructor examined student progress. He found that playing a longer song does not necessarily mean that a student will have more or fewer wrong notes. So we see because it says does not necessarily mean there's no correlation, so that's the one we're going to pick, which is that first one. B says an environmental study was conducted. It reported that for a park, having more visitors indicates having a larger number of trees. What can be determined? Because it says the words indicates, that means that there is some sort of correlation. But we don't know if there is a causation or if there just happens to be a correlation. So because of that, we're going to pick this C because it says there's a correlation between the number of visitors and number of trees. There may or may not be causation. Further studies would need to be done to determine this. Last one, C. Data was collected at a tennis court. It showed that being older implies that a player will stay for a shorter length of time. Because it says the word implies, that means that there is a correlation. And remember, that means that there may or may not be causation. So we're going to go ahead and pick B because further studies would have to be done to determine this, which we can check. Doing that again, we have a phone company determined that a higher income indicates that a customer has more expensive calling plan. So that means that there is a correlation, and we say there may or may not be causation. Further studies would have to occur. B, a produce stand conducted a study. It shows that a customer does not tend to buy more or less fruit when samples are offered, meaning because it says does not tend, that means there's no correlation. C, Latoya compared the player statistics from her team soccer season. She determined that having less playing time implies that players score fewer goals. Now, that means because it says implies that a player has fewer goals, that means that there is a correlation. So we'd go, there is a correlation, however, there may or may not be causation. Further studies would have to be done. One last time, a health group conducted a survey. It showed that a healthier newborn did not necessarily need a larger or smaller amount of diapers. So because of that, it says did not necessarily need, so we don't really know what's going on, so there is no correlation. There's no clear path. B, a government study found that people buy more gasoline when the price per gallon decreases. So we see that there is a correlation. There may or may not be a causation. Further studies would have to be done. C, Mr. Hayes studied his math students' homework and test scores. He found that students who completed more homework did not tend to earn higher or lower scores on the test. So because of that, you can see that there's no tend. So we're going to say no correlation, which we can go ahead and check. So that's how we can identify correlation and causation.